This week, we're talking about one of the most basic concepts in English syntax, which is subordinate clauses. A clause is a part of a sentence. It is an incomplete sentence. Subordinate means that it is less important than the rest of the sentence. What we're talking about is this: subject, verb, object, everything else. We're talking about the everything else. So this could include many different things: place, time, companion, tool, reason, condition, limit, qualification. I already said condition. Many ideas, as long as they are not the subject, the verb, or the object, belongs near the end of the sentence. But you can have a choice. You don't have to put it at the end. You can put it in many different places, as long as you tell the reader that you have moved it from its original location, and you tell the reader with commas. So let me give you an example. We went home when the sun went down. Subject, we. Verb, went. Sorry, went. And then the word go doesn't take an object, but you need to finish the idea. So the complete sentence is we went home. And then you have a time when the sun went down, right? So this is the time of this sentence. Now you'll notice something strange. The sun is a noun, went is a verb, and just like the first half, this seems to be a complete sentence, right? The sun went down. That seems like a complete sentence. But when you add this word, it turns the complete sentence into one part of the main sentence. Once you add the word when, this thing becomes a time. So when you add the word when, this complete sentence becomes a subordinate clause. It's, in terms of grammar, it's less important than the main sentence. And the word when, in this case, is a subordinating conjunction. A conjunction is a word that connects different parts of the sentence. It is a subordinating conjunction because the part that it connects, when it connects that part, it makes that part less important. It makes that part a subordinate clause. So following the pattern I gave you above, you can put the subordinate clause in different places in this sentence. Maybe I should give you a sentence with an object. 1 second. All right, here's another example. The teacher is the subject. Dropped is the verb. The microphone is the object. This is everything else. The word during means at the time. There's a time range. That's also not, hang on, that's not a good, 1 second. Okay, so the word after tells us when the thing happened. Therefore, this is the time of the sentence. Again, if you only look at these two words, class began, that is a complete sentence. Class is the subject, began is the verb. Began does not take an object, so this is SV, period, it's a complete sentence. But once you add this subordinating conjunction, this turns this sentence into a subordinate clause. It becomes the time of the sentence. Okay, now, according to these patterns above, you can add the subordinating clause in different places throughout the sentence. I will demonstrate now. So in this example, we have moved the subordinate clause to the front. And to tell the reader that the main sentence begins in the middle here, we add this comma. This comma tells the reader that everything before this comma is not the main sentence. In this example, we have added the subordinate clause in the middle. And again, in order to tell the reader that this is not part of the main sentence, we have added these two commas. So that's the basic idea here. I've been using time examples, but as I mentioned earlier, there are many, many, many ideas you can put here. So let me give you a few. So these are a few other common ones. Um, oh yeah, there are a few more. Hang on. Okay, so these are some of the common ones. Though adds a condition. While it is the same as during, but then you can add this. If you use the word during, you have to add a noun. If you want to add a complete sentence, you have to use while. If is also a condition. Though is so if is a condition, though is what we call a counterfactual, which means it's different from what you first think. And then the one I want to emphasize is because, especially for Chinese speakers, a lot of you think of the word because as part of a complete sentence. And it's not. Because is a reason, right? This is not a complete sentence. This is one reason. So if your sentence begins with because, you have to give a main verb, a main subject, and then a main verb somewhere later in your sentence. So for example, Because it was hard, few people did it. The main sentence begins here. Right? This is not a complete sentence. If you begin your sentence with because, you have to later add a subject after you're finished with the because part. So this is the subject, did is the verb, it is the object, and this is the everything else. In this case, it is the reason. Finally, let's talk about the word even. In Chinese, some people use this word uh, in a way that is different from the way it's used in English. So in English, you have two similar phrases, even though and even if. Even though basically means though. So what actually happens is different from what you expect, or the situation is not what you were hoping for. Yeah. So, yeah, let me give you an example. They were paid well for their solution, though it didn't work. Subject is they, verb is were paid, and the object is money. But unless you're talking about something else, you don't have to add money. And then you have some other stuff, and then the subordinate clause. And you'll see that the first half and the second half of this sentence go in different directions. Right? The first half says they did something and then they were paid well for it. They earned a lot of money for it. But the second half says the thing that they did not work. So it goes in different directions. That's what the word though does. Even though is the same thing. So you can just add the word even here. And you'll notice that both halves of this sentence happened. They are both true. At the same time, they are paid well, and at the same time, their solution didn't work. Even if has not happened. So they will be, future, hasn't happened yet. Even if, we don't know yet. Will it work? Will it not work? We don't know. So even if is for something that has not yet happened, even though is for something that has already happened. Speakers of Chinese sometimes get confused about this because in Chinese, there's no difference. We use the same term for both, right? 即使, 即便, they both mean the same thing. Although you could also, for even though, you can say 虽然. Now, when we say the word even in Chinese, we're usually saying even if. So, for example, I'm not very good at using Chinese slang, but like even 他这么说，我们还是做的, something like that. So you're using even if, you're not using even though. Right, so even though is the same as though is the same as although. These three words mean the same thing. And which one to use is more a question of emphasis and rhythm, 节奏, Which one sounds better in your sentence? Now, there's one more thing I want to say. And this is not just about subordinate clauses. It's a general principle about commas. I guess we talked about this last semester. Maybe you don't remember. So let's talk about it again. I was saying that you use commas to tell people that you have moved something. In terms of the meaning of the sentence, that is true. But in terms of the grammar, the syntax of the sentence, what the comma is really doing is it's telling the reader which part of the sentence is less important, which part of the sentence is extra information. So in this last example, even though the sentence order is correct, even though you don't need to add the comma, you can still add the comma to emphasize to your reader that the subordinate clause is not essential information. It is extra information. Or at least the two halves of the sentence are not equally important. Let me give you another, let me explain this in another way that hopefully will show you what I'm talking about. Let's see. I remember I created an example somewhere earlier. Here we go. This sentence. So in terms of the sentence meaning, the semantics, the commas tell you that this is a subordinate clause. But in terms of the sentence syntax, what is important? These three sentences mean the same thing. Whether you are using parentheses, commas, or em dashes, 破折号, when you use two of them, you're telling the reader that the middle part is less important. It is extra information. It is supplementary information. You are using a parenthetical, right? Parentheses, parenthetical is the adjective. So again, these three do the same thing, but they give different levels of emphasis. If you use two parentheses, you're telling the reader, this really isn't important. I just thought you might want to know. If you use a comma, it's just a regular, it's not that important. If you use two em dashes, you're telling the reader, you probably should know. It's not as important as the rest of the sentence, but you probably should know. So these three are in order of increasing importance. The first one is least important. The last one is most important, but it's always less important than the main sentence. And so if you remember this logic and you look at this comma, this is emphasizing that this part really is not that important. It's just extra information. Okay, questions? I'm sure some of you have questions. We'll do some practice to figure out where your questions are. Please flip to page 2 of your handout. So let's start from the easiest ones. These 5 questions, number 1 is an example, right? So these 5 questions, each one gives you the subordinate conjunction, and it wants you to put it in the right place in its sentence. 5 questions. I'll give you 2 minutes, and then we'll compare answers. Feel free to discuss with your friends or classmates. This is not a test. We're just doing some practice. All right, let's compare answers. Yes, that has been 2 minutes. Time flies very fast. Number 2, I go to bed, I always brush my teeth. Where do you add the before, Lu Yixuan? Are you sure? So you found the place to separate the 2 parts. Yes, before I go to bed, comma, before I go to bed, comma, I always brush my teeth. Don't forget the comma, 别忘了逗点. Number 3, I was a child. I've been interested in butterflies. 陈友轩. Good, thank you. Ever since I was a child, comma, I've been interested in butterflies. So ever since just means since, which means beginning from when. Ever is just for emphasis, 强调. Number 4, I'm going to meet some friends. I leave class today. 林庭珍. Good. I'm going to meet some friends after I leave class today. Where do you add the comma? Trick question, 陷阱, no comma. Good. So I'm going to meet some friends after I leave class today. This is the usual sentence order. Nothing has been moved. You do not need to add a comma. Number 5, people speak English too fast. Oscar can't catch the meaning. 陈思豪? No? Okay, so can you tell where to separate the 2 parts? People is a noun. Speak is a verb. English is an object. And then Oscar is another noun, catch is another verb, and meaning is another object. So where do we separate the two parts? Okay, good. So it's when people speak English too fast. That's the first part, right? So between the first part and the second part, do we have to add a comma? Which part is the complete sentence? So you said we start the sentence with when, right? So when is a time, which means the first part is a time. When this happens, at the time that this happens. So this whole part is a time, right? So is this the main sentence? It's the time of the main sentence, so it's not the main sentence. Right? The main sentence is the second half. So Oscar is the subject, can't catch is the verb, the meaning is the object, and then the first half tells us the time that this happens. Does that make sense? Okay. I'll talk to you a bit more later. Number 6, the teacher speaks too fast. Oscar is going to ask her to slow down. 赵子红. Number 6. Good. The next time the teacher speaks too fast, comma, Oscar is going to ask her to slow down. Okay. Do you have questions about this part? Yes. Is there a comma in number 5? So we know that it begins with when, right? And the main sentence begins here. So do you need a comma? Does this sentence begin with the main sentence? No, so we have moved it around. So do you need a comma? Yes, you do. To tell the reader that you have moved something. So the comma comes before the beginning of the main sentence. The main sentence begins here, so the comma comes before the main sentence. Good. Other questions? All right, so the second half of this page is a little bit harder because you have to make a correction. There are 5 mistakes. I'll give you 5 minutes. All right, let's compare answers. I'll give you a little bit of help. I will only ask you when I know there's a problem. First line, as soon as mom will get here, we can leave for the game. This sentence has a problem. You see the problem, 徐子涵. First sentence. Good. Will is wrong. What should this be? It should be present tense, but not get. How many people is mom? So this should be gets. Good. As soon as mom gets here, we can leave for the game. Now, this is the only, well, this is one of two possible answers, but the other possible answer is here. We will leave for the game. This is going to happen in the future if the first part comes true. So you can say we can or we will, but this has to be present tense because you don't know if it's going to happen. Right? Remember, in English, if you're talking about something in the present, you should use present progressive, ing. If you use simple present, you're actually talking about something else. In this case, using simple present is talking about a possible situation. So let me give you a slightly different example to help explain, because it feels like some of you are kind of confused. Let's say the first half of this sentence is, as soon as mom walks in. Now, if you want to say that mom walks in the present, you have to say mom is walking in. You have to use present progressive. If you say mom walks in, what you're saying is this is how mom usually comes in. So if you say mom walks in, you're not talking about the present. You are using a different idea. That's why as soon as mom gets here uses the simple present, because in English, the simple present is not simple and not present. Should I say that in Chinese? Yeah, OK. 所以在英文里面表现现在式不能用简单现在式，必须要用现在进行式。我们知道，如果你用简单现在式，一般意思就是常态或者是习惯。可见，简单现在式并不是拿来表示现在，你要用现在进行式才能表示现在。所以这一句用简单现在式的原因，就是因为它是一个可能性，它不是现在发生的，它是可能发生的。所以我们借用那个很奇怪的简单现在式。OK? OK, great. Let's continue. She won't understand what's going on even we give her a long explanation. Something here is wrong. 张庭伟, is this part right? So there are two kinds of even. Which one should this be? Even She won't understand, so this is in the future. So this has not yet happened. So it should be even if. Good. So this is a good example. In English, for this kind of sentence, you can't just say even. You have to say even though for something that has already happened, or even if for something that has not already happened. You have to choose one. If you just use one word even, that is only used for emphasis. You are emphasizing something, and it does not fit in this place. Third one, unless we explain it slowly and carefully, she'll get the basic idea. Something is wrong here. 刘雨桐. Here's a hint. The sentence logic is wrong. The two halves of the sentence are saying different things. 中间有矛盾. Unless means if this does not happen. So the sentence currently says, if we don't explain it slowly and carefully, she will get the basic idea. That doesn't seem right. So how should we fix this? Maybe we can change this. If we don't explain it slowly and carefully, she will not get the basic idea. Wait, hang on, is that right? So the contradiction is true. There really is a contradiction here, but is that the way to fix it? Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Uh, the way to change it is here. The previous sentence is saying uh, we have to take a long time to explain it so that she will understand. And then the next sentence says, okay, so this sentence is saying we have to take a long time to explain. This sentence should be saying the opposite idea, which is we don't have to take a long time. Maybe if we explain it slowly and carefully, she will understand. And then the next sentence also disagrees. And this person says, no, we have to take a long time. So this sentence is saying, if we explain it slowly and carefully, she'll get the basic idea. Cool. Okay. Okay, fine, I'll use Chinese. The sentence currently says, 除非我们慢慢解释，他就会听懂基本概念, which is of course wrong. That doesn't make sense. So we have to change something. Either we change 他会听懂的会, or we change 除非. And if you look at this conversation, the previous person is saying that we have to take a long time to explain to make her understand. And this person disagrees. So it looks like this person is saying, no, no, no. If we explain it slowly and carefully, she will understand. Right? So that way the two people have different ideas. That's what they're talking about. So we can change unless to if, or we can change it to as long as. As long as just means well, in Chinese it means 只要. So this is the only thing we have to do. Next one. Only if we can take an hour or so to explain it, she'll get the overall picture. I'm going to tell you the answer to this one because it's actually a sentence inversion, 它是倒装句. Only if we can take an hour or so to explain it, will she. In English, if you begin a sentence with a word that reduces the possibilities, if it is a kind of condition, 如果是一道窄门, only, rarely, seldom, these kinds of words, never, right? It reduces the possibilities. Then you have to, just like you're asking a yes or no question, you have to move the first word of the verb cluster before the subject. It's a move, right? Remember last week? It's a move. So she will becomes will she can becomes can she. So it begins with only, therefore will she. And then the last one, I'll tell you it's missing a comma. Where do you add the comma? After everything, because the main subject is she, this she, comma here. Right? She, subject, might not understand, verb, everything, object, but it's after even though. So this is a counterfactual. It's something that exists and negatively influences the main sentence. So the main sentence begins here, so you need to put a comma here. Questions? Okay, let's take a short break. During the break, please do the next page. There are 9 mistakes. Okay, let's compare answers. Second paragraph, line 1. Sports are positive, although they get students involved in something. What's wrong with this sentence, Alex? Paragraph 2, first line. Okay, so although and even though mean the same thing. Does the logic of this sentence make sense? So how should we fix it? 帮我关一下后门，谢谢。It looks like the logic problem comes from although. Like the two parts of this sentence seem to be saying they go in the same direction, but although goes in a different direction. So how can we change this? What could we replace this word with? I'm thinking we can use the word because. Sports are positive because they get students involved in something. Do you think that makes sense? Like later on, it says, I think a lot of people get involved in crime when they don't have enough to do. So if the person thinks that, then getting involved in something like sports is probably a good thing, right? So it's positive because they get students involved in something that is not illegal. Make sense? Great. Why does it seem like you don't agree?
I don't know, like the last part of the sentence kind of bothers me.
This sentence? Is it because it's too vague?
Yeah, like
Yeah. So this is probably not the best sentence in the world, but we're looking at grammar and logic. So in terms of grammar and logic, that fixes the problem. Next one. After you'll play any kind of sport for 2 or 3 hours, it's hard to commit a violent act even if you want to. What's wrong with this sentence? Li Kaichen. So you think we need to add the word when? What if I told you the problem is a verb tense? 时态问题. Is this correct? Is this correct? So how should we fix it? Oh, without will. Sorry. I didn't hear you. Correct. Take out the will. After you play. Because the main sentence is also present tense. We're talking about a general situation, so this should also be present tense, a general situation. Good. This one. Wherever their team wins, they learn how to be good winners. What's wrong with this sentence? Lin Yixuan? 林一轩在吗? Yes. What's wrong with this sentence? Wherever their team wins, they learn how to be good winners. Is this sentence talking about a place? So wherever is wrong, right? So what should we change this to? If we're not talking about a place, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a time? So like their team wins, they learn how to be good winners. It seems like we're talking about a time. If you don't win, you can't learn how to be a good winner. So when when it happens that they win, then they can learn this. So it seems to be a time, right? So we can change wherever into good, whenever. So that brings up a different question. What is the difference between when and whenever? In this series of words, right? Whenever, wherever, however, whoever. I think those are the only four. I might be forgetting one. Thank you. Yes, whatever. In this series of words, you don't know if this actually happens. You don't know if this time will come. You don't know if this place, where the place is, if there is this place. You don't know if there is this way. You don't know if there is this person. You don't know if there is this thing. So whenever their team wins means you don't know if they will win. But if they do win, at that time, they learn how to be good winners. So when means you know they're going to win, and when they do win, etc. Whenever means you don't know if they're going to win, but if they win at that time. Right? Ever means you don't know if it exists. Next one. When their team loses, they find out that they have to struggle to improve. What's wrong with this sentence? Weihan. Where do you separate the two parts of this sentence? Good. Then the question is, do you need to add a comma? Which part is the main sentence? The first half or second half? Second half. So the main sentence does not come at the beginning. So do you need to add a comma? Yes, you do. Good. When their team loses, comma, they find out that they have to struggle to improve. Right? The first half is when, it's a time. Next one. Also, students improve their physical condition unless they participate in sports. That doesn't sound right. Wang this one, this sentence. Okay, so what should this be? No, participate in is correct. 你要不要看眼前讲义啊？ What if I told you it's a logic problem? Good, not unless. If. Thank you. Right? If they participate in sports, they will improve their physical condition. Unless goes in two different directions, but we want them to go in the same direction. Thank you. Next sentence. Finally, okay, this is a long sentence. Sports are positive, though they allow students who don't have enough money for college to earn sports scholarships and improve their chances for a successful life. What's wrong with this sentence? Mian? Good. This is wrong. And you said change it to because. Thank you. So again, if you use the word though, the two halves of this sentence are going in different directions. But in fact, these two should go in the same direction, right? First is they're positive. It's a good thing. Students who don't have enough money for college can get scholarships and improve their chances for a successful life. This is also good. So they go in the same direction. This should be because. Yoan, do we need to add a comma? Does this sentence start with the main part? So sports are positive is the first half, though, or sorry, because blah, blah, blah is the second half. Which part is the main sentence? Yes, this is the main sentence. Because blah, blah, blah is the reason in this sentence. It's the other stuff. So do you need to add a comma here? Uh, the expected order is it begins with the main part and then you add everything else at the back. So is this the expected order? It is, right? It begins with the main sentence and then at the second half of the sentence, you get all of this other stuff. So this is the expected order. Nothing has been moved around. So you do not need to add a comma. Okay, good. So the point I want to emphasize is this is the longer half of the sentence, but that does not make it the more important half of the sentence. In this case, the main part is the shorter part. Sports is the subject, are is the verb, and then are doesn't take an object. We call this a complement. You don't have to remember that, but it's the rest of the main part of the sentence. And then because tells you that everything else is a reason. It is not a subject, verb, or object. Next sentence. Unless a young soccer player from a small village in Africa can get a scholarship, he will have a chance to get an education and probably make his life better. What's wrong with this sentence? Warranty. This is also a logic problem. Are the two halves of this sentence going in the same direction or in different directions? Like a young soccer player can get a scholarship and he will have a chance to get an education. Are these going in the same direction or the different directions? Same direction, right? So I think this is a problem. Unless. Good, we can change this to if. We can also change it to as long as. As long as means, of course, if the first half is true, then the second half will be true. And we can say this because a scholarship just means that he will have a chance to get an education. These two mean exactly the same thing. So you can say if or you can say as long as. Next one. Because school sports programs have some problems that need to be fixed, their benefits outweigh their disadvantages. What's wrong with this, Judy? Can't hear you. So you're saying this is wrong. Correct. Look at the two halves. So it's not because. It should be even though or although. You can choose one. Look at the two halves of this sentence. School sports programs have some problems, and their benefits outweigh their disadvantages. These two sentences are going in different directions. So it's not because. You want a word that tells you it's going in different directions. So it's though, although, or even though. Okay, questions about this page? Um, how many did we catch? Somebody count. Did we get 9? 9? Okay, thank you. Um, there's okay, yeah, good. Okay. Next page. So if you're new this semester, if you see this kind of practice question, these are the hardest ones. So it says here, concentrate on commas. There are 15 mistakes. 5 of them are extra commas, and 10 of them need a comma, but they don't have it. So to correct this, take out 5 commas and add in 10 commas. What else do we have? Okay, I have some good news for you. If we finish this today, you will have no homework. So I'll give you, what is that? 15 problems. How much time should I give you? I'll give you 15 minutes. All right, let's see what's going on. I'll just tell you the answers because I know a lot of you are feeling like what the hell? Okay, so for this set of questions, you have to remember the difference between the main part and the subordinate part of the sentence. You also have to remember this idea. You can use two commas to add extra information. So the first comma is here, and the second comma is here. This name is extra information. This letter is being written to Ms. Ehrlich. Of course, she knows her own name. So you don't need to tell her, or you don't need to call her by her name. So this is extra information. By the way, this word, Ms. I mentioned this last semester. If you weren't here last semester, Ms. is what you use for a woman if you don't want to say or you don't know if she is married. If you want to say that she's not married, you would say Miss. If you want to say that she is married, you would say Mrs. MRS. If you don't want to say if she's married or not, you would say Ms. MS. Okay, well, comma, Ms. Ehrlich, comma. That time of year has arrived again. You don't need a comma here. I is the subject. Must think is the verb. There's no reason you need a comma between the subject and the verb. Next one, you don't need this comma. An employee of a company. There's no reason to add a comma here. Next one, comma. The main sentence begins with let. Let me say. So this is information related to the time, or sorry, the priority. The first thing to do. So before the main sentence begins, add a comma. Next one, I hope you all caught this one because we're talking about it this week. When I applied for the job, comma. The subject of this sentence is I, and the when part is the time of this sentence. Next one, you don't need this comma. 2 long lunches makes perfect sense. You can count how many long lunches you have. So the reason why some people might accidentally add a comma here is because if you have 2 adjectives of the same kind, then you would need to separate them with and or with a comma. We talked about this a little bit last semester. So for example, if the sentence said, taking long, exhausting, tiring lunches. Long, exhausting, tiring all mean the same thing. It's repeating for emphasis. So you would say long, comma, exhausting, comma, tiring lunches. The adjectives are all the same kind. But here, to and long are different kinds of adjectives, right? To is a number, long is a time. So you don't need a comma. Next one. You don't need this comma. Okay, like very quickly, sneaking out the back door is not my idea of fun. What is the subject of this sentence? Good. Sneaking out the back door. This action is the subject. So in this case, the action sneak, we added ing to turn it into a noun. In English grammar, we call this a gerund, 动名词. And then this information goes with the action. So the whole thing is the subject. It is one action. It is one noun. It is the subject. So is not is the verb. And you do not need to add a comma between the subject and the verb. Next one. Add a comma before the I. The sentence begins with because, right? So it's a reason. Because, and then inside this reason, no one is the subject, watches is the verb, what I am doing is the object. But the whole thing is one reason. And the main sentence, the subject of the main sentence, begins with I. So you need to add that comma before the I. Next one. Same as the first one. You're talking to somebody, they know their name, you know their name. This is extra information. Also, comma, Ms. Ehrlich, comma. Next one. Upon, which means when it happened. So the main sentence begins with I. You need to add a comma. Next one. Most experienced, most skilled. Are these two the same thing? Yes, they are. So you need to add a comma in the middle. Personally, I would make a bigger change. I would say most experienced and skilled. But the question asks us only to change commas. So most experienced, comma, most skilled. And therefore you don't need a comma here. Same here. To and extra are different kinds of adjectives, so you don't need a comma. Okay, that should be it. Somebody count. Did we get 15? Interesting. Okay. So grammar. We talk about grammar like it's logical. It's like a science. It has correct answers. But when you get to a high enough level of grammar, people can disagree. Different grammar produces different ideas. And different people will think that the same sentence is saying different things, so their grammar will also be a little bit different. What I'm saying is, I disagree with the author of this set of questions, but I see what she's thinking. So according to the author of this textbook, we're missing 2 commas, right? We need to add 2 more commas here and here. The author is saying, and most important is extra information. I don't agree. I think first and most important, these 2 are equally essential to the sentence. But different people have different thoughts on this. And then we took out one extra comma, right? It says take out 5, we took out 6. Okay, so the one that the author thinks we should not take out is this one. And again, we have different interpretations of the grammar. I said that these two adjectives mean the same thing. But the author is saying that most skilled is extra information. So we added a comma here, and the author wants to keep this comma so that most skilled is between two commas and therefore is extra information. So we disagree. But whether you follow me or you follow the textbook, both sets of answers can be correct. Okay, questions about this page? Okay, so speaking of commas, I think it's not a surprise to say that I'm pretty good at English, right? So when I was taking my college entrance exam, that year, we were the first set of students to use the new curriculum at the time. So we were experimental. And so the college entrance exam center needed to pick some example essays so that students in the future using that set of curriculum could see what is a good answer. And my English essay was the first example because my score was the highest. I got an 18.5 out of 20 on the essay. And of course, so like because my essay was chosen as the example, I had to go to the center and sign a release agreeing to let them use my essay anonymously. And so I took that chance to ask, hey, what are the mistakes that prevented me from getting a full 20? And the answer was a different interpretation of commas. They disagreed with me on 2 commas. 1 comma is worth 0.5. And then the last 0.5 was because my handwriting was too messy, which is why I'm typing on a computer. So yes, commas are something I feel deeply passionate about. They prevented me from getting full scores. So it's very likely that a comma question will appear on the midterm exam. I have not yet written the exam, but it's very likely. Okay, that's it today. Next week, we're going to talk about a special kind of subordinate clause called the participial construction, 分词构句. You can look forward to that next week.